welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here in Western Canada. I hope that all of you are having a lovely start to your weekend and happy Friday to you. Everyone, this is a members chat class. That means to write in the chat during this live lesson. You need to be a member of our channel. To become a member, just click the join button next to the subscribe button. And in this class, we're looking specifically at task 2 writing for the academic IELTS. General IELTS task 2 is very, very similar to the academic, so learning for either one will do the trick. And this task 2 will be on the topic of legal drug use. Now, this lesson is brought to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS. Visit us there. For general IELTS, check us out at gieltshelp.com. Task 1 of the writing section is a fair bit different for the academic versus the general. In the academic, you write about a graph or a chart, and in the general IELTS, you write a letter. Welcome, Fong. Hi, Angel, Amra, Romelia, Domenico, Anahita, Fatma Noor. Nice to see our members, and welcome, Alexi and Carolina. Good to see our chat moderators here with us today. Students, the websites that power these live lessons are gieltshelp.com. This is general IELTS with the green background. Click this big red button that's just above my head there to join our premium IELTS package. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access. For the academic IELTS, it's the blue background. Click this big red button there and join our premium package. We're an IDP affiliate, British Council partner, IELTS Test Registration Center, and we are world leaders when it comes to IELTS exam preparation. You can use the code CHOICE9 for a 10% discount on the websites. So when you're on the website and you click that red button, you can enter the code CHOICE9 and it will give you an additional 10% off the full course price. And again, it's just a one-time payment. So you can use it as long as you need to until you pass your IELTS exam with the score that you need. For schoolwork or immigration, we're here to help. All right, everybody. We have apps: Academic IELTS Help, General IELTS Help. We have Instagram, IELTS_AE Help, GIELTS Help. And if you have questions, send me an email to adrian@aehelp.com or admin@aehelp.com. We are here to help you with your writing and all other aspects of the IELTS. So don't be shy, send us an email. We've got reading coming up after this class for subscribers, so make sure to subscribe. That's absolutely free and it's a really good idea. And then tomorrow we've got speaking part 2, speaking part 3, and we always have some new materials for you on our channel. Our most recent one is this video release here that I just put into the chat. Check that out. That's to help improve your speaking, everybody. Thank you, Alexi, for sharing my email in the chat. I appreciate that. Okay, everyone, so let's get into our IELTS Task 2 writing question. Now, the IELTS likes to pick topics that are current for Task 2. So, for example, a topic about the environment, like environmental tourism, for example, or topics about technology, using mobile phones. So IELTS Task 2 topics tend to be topics that are current, that are fairly well known around the world, and I often find that IELTS Task 2 topics tend to reflect issues which are important for some Western societies, like certain European societies, United Kingdom, or even Canada, the US, Australia. And I have a feeling that the reason, well, there's a couple reasons that IELTS probably does that. Okay, so, and I'm not sure if you've noticed this, but if you think differently, if you think I'm off my rocker, which means you think I'm crazy, then let me know. But all of the IELTS exams that I've seen and all of the IELTS Task 2 topics that I've seen tend to reflect current topics and tend to reflect topics of interest. So Task 2 topics tend to reflect global trends, current topics, and topics of interest. And I do believe there's a reason for this, okay? It's IELTS makers want to choose topics where most people have opinions. And also topics that matter for the current development of society. So when a country accepts 50,000 new students to study from abroad or 100,000 new people to live from abroad, I think they want them to be thinking about these topics because these are the topics that will potentially become part of their lives. So has everybody found that? This is kind of a question. I hope I'm not just kind of talking to myself with this, but have you discovered that when you're dealing with Task 2 topics in the IELTS, and I guess, in the speaking it's kind of similar as well, but especially in Task 2 writing, especially on the academic IELTS, you tend to see topics that are current interest for people. I think they try to avoid topics that are too controversial, but they're not shy. So they will ask you about the extinction of animals, global climate change, the overuse of oil and gas, the change to electric vehicles, equality between genders, so equality between people more. So Alexi says, yeah, I have thought about that. I've noticed that. Good. Yeah, and I see a lot of thumbs up. So today's topic is no different, okay? And the reason I mention that is because it's good to stay up to date with current affairs. So why am I actually saying this, right? Like you're like, oh, great, Adrian, but why are you telling me this, right? So it is a good idea to stay in touch with current affairs through news apps like CBC or CNN, okay? CBC is the British news. CNN is Canadian news. So it's good. It's a good idea, okay? All right. So let's take a look at today's question, and it's a fairly provocative, interesting question that has become a question for many societies, Canada included. Here we go. Let's take a look. So Task 1 writing, what you need to do first and foremost when you get to the writing section, always start with Task 1. Okay, Task 1 should take you 20 minutes. Task 1 is somewhat like a warm-up. Okay, that's where you get your mind thinking and writing, your hand and your mind working together, whether it's typing on the computer-based or writing by hand on the paper-based. So start with Task 1, spend 20 minutes, then spend your 40 minutes on Task 2. Your first step is to read this question carefully. Okay, so let's do that. Let's read it together. Some societies support decriminalizing small amounts of illegal drugs to help treat people with addictions, while other societies believe that decriminalization leads to more problems and any use of illicit drugs should be considered as lawlessness. Which opinion do you support and why? Use explanations and examples from your own experience. Write at least 250 words. All right. Now, write at least 250 words. So students, good essays tend to be a bit longer, closer to 350 words. Okay. Anahita, they do not tell you when the 20 minutes is over. There has to be a clock in the room. That's a rule of IELTS, so you should have a clock visible. In the computer-based exam, of course, there's a clock on your computer screen, so you can always see that clock. In the paper-based exam, there has to be a clock in the exam room, so keep an eye on it. You should kind of have an idea of when that 20 minutes is done. When you're in your last 2-3 minutes for task 1, you should be finishing and reviewing your essay for mistakes. So as soon as you see the clock hit, 17-18 minutes after the hour, stop, start reviewing. Okay, so wrap it up. All right. Angel, 40 minutes has to be enough. When I was in my IELTS, I wrote, I think, like 600 words or close to in the 40 minutes. A student at the college or university level can write 400 or 500 words in 40 minutes and can review those 300 to 400 words. So ideally, you should be able to write 300, 350 words and still have about 3-4 minutes to review with planning, with 5 minutes of planning. So that means that 300, 350 words should only take you about 30 minutes to write. Okay. Band 7, 8, 9 writing means that the student is thinking about their writing, not so much about the English. Okay. Just like in the speaking, a band 7 is good English. So you're not really thinking about your English too much. You're thinking more about the content, how to put it together. Okay. That's important to understand that. All right, so the first step here is let's paraphrase this question. So rewrite the question in your own words to get a clear idea of the essay, to come up with ideas and vocabulary. Okay, so that's our first step here. That's step 1. All right, I'm going to do this and then I will take a look at what you're putting up there. All right, so here we go. Okay, so I'm just writing here, and all I'm doing is I'm looking at the original, so you can probably see my eyes shifting between the original and what I'm writing, and I'm thinking about different words and also different grammar or different ways to make the sentence. Okay, so both of those, and when you're doing this, it doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be grammatically perfect. The most important is that you have the same information. Okay. Okay, so here is my paraphrase of the original. Certain communities believe that little amounts of narcotics should not be considered illegal, so that people with addiction can get medical help. On the other hand, there are groups of individuals that ascertain that legalization of narcotics results in challenges, and any use of illicit drugs must be considered as criminal activity. Which side do you support and why? Use cases from your own knowledge. Okay, so here I've maintained all of the information in the original question, and I have done at least 80-90% paraphrasing, where, for instance, illegal drugs, I'm now using the word narcotics. That will help my lexical resource. Okay, instead of saying societies or some societies, I'm writing certain communities. Okay, paraphrasing is an extremely important skill. You must use it well. You're going to be using it in university also. Okay, let's take a look at what some of you have written, and we'll kind of match it up here with the top part and see how you did. So here is Carolina's paraphrase of the main part. Let's take a look, Carolina. I'm going to check your paraphrasing, because if your paraphrasing is off, that means that you are not understanding the question correctly. So when you're practicing task 2 in groups or with your teacher, make sure that you really check the paraphrasing, because if it's not accurate, there could be a fundamental problem with the way you understand the question, and then no matter how well you write, it's not going to get a good score. So especially in the academic IELTS, you must have good topic and good content. Okay, so Carolina says, some cultures agree that small amounts of prohibited drugs should be allowed for drug addicts. On the contrary, others argue that drug legalization results in more issues, and the use of banned drugs should be considered against the law. Very nice paraphrasing, Carolina. So look how different Carolina's paraphrasing is from the original question. Look how different it is from my paraphrasing, yet it still has the same information. So there are always ways to paraphrase, and there are many different outstanding ways to paraphrase questions. Okay. All right. Very nice, clean, accurate paraphrasing, Carolina. It's definitely the right step. Okay. All right. Alexi has this response for us. Okay. Let's take a look. All right. Alexi writes, certain groups of people keep up the idea. Instead of keep up the idea, Alexi, it's better to say hold the idea, in my opinion. So certain groups of people hold the idea of legalizing small quantities. You can actually pluralize that, quantities of drugs, as it aids persons with drug dependencies. Very nice. Meanwhile, other parts of society consider that it brings more troubles, and any kind of drug usage. Now let's put illicit. Illicit means like illegal drug usage, because drugs also actually mean pharmaceutical medicines as well. So illegal drug usage has to be considered as illegal action. You don't need the word action, because that's included in the concept of illegal. So a couple of small corrections to make it more natural, more accurate, but overall, Alexi, again, a very good paraphrase. Chayani, let's see what you have here. And notice so many different ways of doing this, right? So Chani writes, some citizens believe that allowing people to use certain types of illegal drugs to recover individuals with addictions to aid the recovery. Okay, we need a bit more clarification there to make it accurate. To aid the recovery of individuals of addiction. should be permitted. Okay? Whereas other people ascertain that decriminalization can increase more problematic. Increase the number of issues in society. Okay, so again, just a couple of corrections there, Chayani, to make it a bit better, but overall, not bad at all. Okay. All right, and I see the rest of it, Chayani, and that consuming some illicit drugs tends to break the law regulations. That's included in this now. Okay. All right. Good. Now, do pay attention to everybody's paraphrasing because, as you should be doing, there are lots of words and sentence structures that you can learn from each other and implement in your essay. Certain communities encourage decriminalizing small quantities of lawless drugs of illicit. We don't say lawless in this case. Illicit drugs to satisfy the addictions of humans. I don't know if it's to satisfy. So Fong, you have to be careful about content here. It's not about satisfying the addictions. It's about helping those addictions. Okay. So decriminalizing small quantities of illicit drugs to manage. Okay. If you want to express that idea a little bit more accurately, manage the addictions of some humans. Whereas other communities argue that decriminalization turns into a lot of troubles and the activity of consuming abused substances should be presumed as illegal. Should be illegal, not presumed as illegal, but should be illegal. We're not presuming it to be illegal. We're saying it is illegal. Okay? So, but Fong, otherwise fairly good. Nice grammatical paraphrasing there. All right. Romelia, let's see what you have here. Meanwhile, members, because of course a lot of you are in these classes regularly, you should be now planning the essay whereby you're identifying the topic, the controlling ideas, and you're starting to think critically about the topic and the controlling ideas. So what are we talking about here? Why are we discussing this? How are we discussing this? And what in relation to this topic are we discussing, and why and how? Again, think about examples. Think about examples in your communities or in your societies or what you might have seen on the news or in TV, and start to formulate ideas around it. Okay? Does that make sense, everybody? So while I'm finishing up the paraphrasing here, I've got Romelia, Domenico, and Anahita here still. It's going to take me a minute. Get a jump on it. Okay, so start to move ahead, especially if you know what step 2, step 3 is in the process of planning. Okay, you should be moving ahead. Okay, all right. So here we have Romelia's paraphrasing. Okay. Romelia writes, some communities advocate for the legalization of prohibited drugs as a way to address addiction issues, while others take the view that this approach would exacerbate existing problems and consider any use of illicit substance to be a violation of the law. That is outstanding paraphrasing, Romelia. And Romelia does have the rest of the question. And students, I do recommend paraphrasing, especially at home, the entire question, just so your brain really gets the right idea. What is your stance on the issue, and what are the reasons for your opinion? Please use your personal experience and explanations to support your answer. Very good. Okay? So, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think this is an excellent way, Romelia, to paraphrase it. It is paraphrasing it at the Band 9 level. So outstanding job, Romelia. Good use of vocabulary, sentence structure, nice natural expressions. Yes, indeed. Okay. Domenico. And it's another way. I mean, look how different Romelia's is from everybody else's. And it's a band 9. It's a excellent paraphrase. Okay. Good. When you're at home and you're practicing for part 2, use a thesaurus, use a dictionary, find synonyms, right? Learn new words. Okay. When you're doing this step. All right. Just out of curiosity, while I'm paraphrasing or helping to evaluate Domenico's paraphrasing here, I might as well ask the question, how many, because I know, for example, Domenico is in Italy, Romelia is in Romania, and Carolina is in Argentina, Phuong is in Vietnam, Chayani is in Indonesia, and so on. So you're coming from around the world. And I am genuinely curious, in your country, is this a topic of discussion? Has it been put forward to society to do this? And maybe in some of your societies, like for us in Canada now, this is actual. So the government has started to decriminalize small quantities of personal used illegal drugs to help with addiction problems. So I'm curious to know, for how many of you is a topic like this completely unfamiliar, like you've never heard of this idea or this is completely unknown, and how many of you have heard about this at some point in your daily lives in your country or your area. Okay, I'm really curious about that, so do let me know. It gives me an insight into how much background you can bring into this. Okay, while you answer that question, let's take a look at Domenico here. So Domenico's paraphrase is, some communities argue that legalizing the consumption of illegal narcotics, now narcotics are illegal, so you don't need illegal, because narcotics includes the meaning of illegal, Domenico. Okay. Can help combat drug addiction. Very nice use of this, help combat. Maybe I'll go back and underline some nice paraphrasing from different members here. While others feel that decriminalizing illegal substances, another good paraphrase here, illegal substances, can lead to more problems. What is your stance on this issue? Nice paraphrasing. This is the same as what Romelia did. What is your stance on the issue, and what are the reasons for your opinion? Please use your personal experiences and explanations to support your answer. Very good. A couple of corrections there, but very, very good. All right, Anahita, let's take a look at what you have here. Okay. Anahita, do you have an end to this? Yes, you do. Okay. So here we go. Some communities hold the view that smidgen narcotics, so we don't need the word smidgen here, Anahita, it's a little bit off too. So that narcotics, don't need drugs, narcotics includes the word drugs. So hold the view that narcotics should be legitimated, should be... legitimate is, it means more like it's the original or it's approved. It's not the right, it's close, but it's not the right word in this context. It's a bit awkward. Should be legal to aid individuals, no comma, who consume these substances, while others argue that legalization will be accountable for more pred and illegal drugs, for more problems, I think. I don't know what you mean by pred there, but problems. And illegal drugs should not be allowed by society. Okay, sure. It's a little bit simpler, Anahita. There's a few mistakes there, but you're on the right track, which is good. All right, so we've got the paraphrasing out of the way. And we've got lots of different ways to express these ideas. Carolina, very nice paraphrasing here with some cultures. Okay. Prohibited drugs is another really good paraphrase here. Drug addicts, addictions. Okay. Banned drugs, another good paraphrasing here. Okay. Instead of small amounts, small quantities by Alexi. Very good paraphrasing there. Drug dependencies, drug addiction, very good. Aid persons, to help people, is very good paraphrasing. Okay. Good use of paraphrasing connectives as well, by the way, like meanwhile. Okay. Whereas. Okay, no comma there. All right. By Chayani. Okay. Aid the recovery is very good. Okay, we can tell that Chayani works with medicine. That's a good paraphrase there. Okay. Fuang, certain communities, yes, encourage decriminalization. Very nice paraphrasing there. Okay. Decriminalization turns into a lot of troubles is very good as well. Abused substances is very good paraphrasing as well, Fuang. Okay. Communities advocate. Very good paraphrasing. Okay. Prohibited drugs. Good paraphrasing. Okay. Address addiction issues. Very nice paraphrasing there, Romelia. All right. Violation of the law. Very good expression there as well. Okay. Exasperate existing problems. Very nice. So notice how Romelia has a good experience with English. So she's not just paraphrasing based on individual words, but she's paraphrasing through the use of common English expressions, which is very good. Okay. All right. Hold the View by Anahita is a very good paraphrase at the beginning there. Okay. Will be accountable is good paraphrasing there. Okay. All right. So you're on the right track here. Now, you've answered that question of mine, and it's interesting to see. So I'm guessing that Alexi is saying yes in his society. I believe, Alexi, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're in the Ukraine. It is a topic of discussion. I think that's why you're giving me the thumbs up. Maybe. Jani says in Indonesia it is a sin and considered illegal. Anahita says predicament. Carolina says it is not allowed. Okay. It seems like in certain countries it's not allowed, but it is a topic of discussion, right? Okay. Okay, Fuang says in Vietnam it's illegal and prohibited drugs, and most citizens do not support decriminalization. They will be imprisoned, life sentences. Yes, some societies are extremely harsh when it comes to drug use. Okay, all right, well, let's get into it a little bit, right? So let's plan out our ideas. Now, remember, students, academic IELTS, don't be emotional, be logical. Your goal is to get a band 9. You want to stay calm and come up with great ideas. So what is the topic? Yes, absolutely. Alexi, the topic is decriminalization, small amounts of narcotics. That's what we're talking about, right? Okay. All right. So good. That's what we're talking about. What's the controlling idea? So you should never start writing an essay before you know the topic and the controlling idea, right? So this is your step 2. Always identify the topic and controlling idea or ideas. Okay. You should never start an essay before you clearly do this. Okay, because it's one of the biggest issues with especially a lot of IELTS candidates that have good English skills is they just presume to know the topic, they jump into it, they make a lot of mistakes. So don't do that, okay? All right. What's the controlling idea here? Okay. let's see. Controlling idea. Alexi says, is the idea of legalization outweighs the disadvantages of what possible law adjustment? Alexi, try to be a little bit more specific. I think you've actually taken away from the question. So the question is more specific. Carolina, same idea. Should illegal drug use be allowed or prohibited by law? You've taken away from the question. You've generalized it when the question is actually more specific. Let's see. Anybody else with the controlling idea? The controlling idea is in the question, everybody. Okay, so keep that in mind. It is in the question. Okay, you shouldn't be changing it. Okay, so the benefit of legalization helps addicts or leads to more social problems. Okay? All right? So that's the controlling idea. Remember, it's in the question. It says that legalization should be allowed to help people who have addictions. Okay? And then the other aspect is it should not be allowed because it does not help or it creates more problems in society. Okay, so do you see that now, that that's the controlling idea? The controlling idea is always in the question. It's very, very rare that the controlling idea is not directly stated. So here the correct answer you should be taking from the question, right? It says to aid addictions or aid people with addictions or leads to more problems, right? So the benefit of legalization helps addicts or leads to more social problems. Which do you believe, right? Do you see that now? Amra, do you see it? Okay. All right, let's jump into the what, why, how. So students, the next step, step 3, is think critically. Okay, and I know some viewers are probably thinking, I only have 40 minutes. I don't have time for this. Yes, if you want to get a band 7, 8, 9, you have to find the time for this. These steps, so step 1, 2, 3, 4, the next step, should only take you about 5 minutes. In the actual exam, you're not writing down step 3. Okay, step 3 in the real exam is only in your head. On paper, at home, while preparing for IELTS, and in your head, only when you are in the real test. Because of course, in the real test, you don't have time to write all this down unless you're very fast. Okay, if you're an extremely fast typer or writer, then you might be able to do this even on paper, even in the real exam, but you have to assess here. Okay, all right. Looks like everybody agrees with the topic and the controlling idea, which is good. Okay. All right. First of all, let's discuss this. Decriminalizing small amounts of narcotics. So what does that mean? What does it mean to decriminalize small quantities of narcotics? Okay, what do you think? I'm going to go a little bit faster with the planning here, and all we have to do your own, so plan it by yourself as well, and then compare so that we can be on the same page. We need to make sure that we have the same idea. This information will be very useful for the essay. So these pieces combine together to make a great essay, a great piece of writing. For Band 7, Band 8, Band 9 on the IELTS, the examiners are balancing your mistakes with language and grammar with your content. So with your logic, with your argument, with what you're actually writing. Okay? All right. So to make low amounts, a couple of grams of illegal drugs, not punishable by jail time. That is for personal use and not sale. Okay. So here in Canada, this topic is quite current. In some European societies like Portugal or Holland, for example, the Netherlands, they've already done this years ago. So there are actually societies that are ahead of Canada on this, or ahead of some other countries on this, and they've already done it. Okay. Basically, you know, I do have maybe a little bit more knowledge than some of you, but basically what they're talking about here by decriminalizing small quantities is quantities that are for personal use. So if a person gets caught with a bag of drugs, they're going to jail. Okay, you can't be selling. But again, illegal sale of other goods. So you can't sell fruits and vegetables illegally. You can't sell chicken or meat illegally. You need permissions for that. There's reasons for that, right? So here we're talking about personal use, not large quantities, okay? Domenico says Germany is about to legalize the use of small amounts of narcotics, okay? Okay. All right. So what does it mean to decriminalize small quantities of narcotics? To make low amounts, a couple of grams of illegal drugs, not punishable by jail time. That is for personal use and not for sale. Okay? All right. Good. Angel, marijuana is decriminalized in Canada, but now we've decriminalized all illicit drugs, as far as I know, in small quantities. So it's becoming quite interesting. So it's not, you know, this isn't something like, oh, maybe I should. No, it's a part of our current and future societies. And a lot of times what happens in some countries like Canada, Germany, Holland, Portugal eventually makes its way to other countries. We'll discover why this might be happening, right? So obviously there are some smart people thinking about this. It's not just an overnight decision, hopefully, right? Okay, why? Why should small amounts be decriminalized? Okay, so what do you think? What's the logic of this, right? And I'll tell you what the Canadian Society says. Okay, Canadian Society says that drug addiction is a medical problem, not a criminal problem. Okay. Decriminalization can lead to better solutions than punishment by law. Okay, so that is the concept behind it. Okay, so drug addiction is a medical problem, it's not a criminal problem. Decriminalization can lead to better solutions than punishment by law. Okay, so that's what it is. How? Okay. How can drugs, illegal drugs, be decriminalized? Okay, so how is this done? It's done through society. So society makes a decision and new laws are put into place. Okay, sure. All right. Now, we need to do the same for the controlling idea, right? So how does, okay, so let me jump back to the what here, right? So what is the concept of helping people with addictions by allowing small quantities of illegal drugs. Okay, so, and be concise. I don't think I'm as concise here as I could be, but anyway, be concise as you can be. So what is the concept of helping people with addictions by allowing small quantities of illegal drugs? Okay, it means providing small amounts through social services to people with drugs, instead of depending on criminal entities. Okay. All right. So a person can get their small amount of drug from a pharmacy, right? So that would be the how question. They can get these drugs through special services or pharmacies. Okay. All right. Why, right? So here I'm just shortening the questions a bit because I want to move along and I want you to think about this, and I'm going to jump to another interesting concept here, right? I'm going to teach you to think outside the box a little bit in today's lesson as well, right? Why? To decrease criminal activity and increase medical aid. Okay. All right. Okay. Why would this lead to, or what are more problems in society? More financial burden on taxpayers to support drug addictions. More problems with addicts. Potential exposure to children. Okay. All right. For instance, okay. Now, here's an interesting thought, right? So let's say you're sitting there, you're thinking about this, and you know, people tend to be quite emotional when they make decisions on these kinds of topics, from my experience. However, especially for you academic IELTS students, but I would recommend this for everybody, be an academic, okay? Don't just consider topics from stigmas and stereotypes. So be philosophical. Okay, here's a question that you should be asking yourself. Is there any society in the world today that doesn't already do this? Okay. And it's a kind of a loaded question. I'm just trying to get you guys to think, and if you can, tell me what I'm trying to steer you towards. So is there any society in the world today that doesn't actually have illegal, legal drugs that it controls and tries to control the addictions of people? Carolina, what do you think? Carolina says there are. All right. I would say no. I would say all societies already have decriminalized drugs where they attempt to control the addictions. Examples: alcohol, tobacco, shisha, coffee. There you go. Right? So even the Middle Eastern countries, people consume shisha, people consume coffee. They are drugs. Let's not fool ourselves. They are addictive drugs. And yes, indeed, when people have problems of overconsumption of alcohol, tobacco, shisha, then society tries to step in and say, hey, whoa, wait a second. You might want to slow down. You're hurting yourself. Okay. Amra says, what is shisha? Good question. It's kind of like comparable to tobacco. So it's a type of plant that is smoked. It gives a very quick, immediate sensation or gratification. Domenico, coffee is one of the most addictive drugs known in existence. That's why people try to deny it as a drug. And there are definitely people who are highly addicted to coffee. Just try to take away people's morning or lunchtime cup of coffee and see what happens to them for the next 2 weeks. Okay? All right. So yes, indeed, every single society already has been dealing with this, okay, since we've had societies for hundreds or even thousands of years, right? So humans' addiction to certain drugs. And if we want to really stretch our imagination, then even addiction to sugar can be grouped in with this. Now that's a bit of a stretch, but alcohol, tobacco, shisha, and coffee, definitely. Okay. Chinese says, I'm a latte addict, right? Yeah, and certain people do take this too far, right? So there you go. We already have it, right? So drug addiction, so far, countries that have decriminalized some stronger drugs, they don't have their whole country running around doing these drugs, okay? You see how that works now? Right, so it's human perspective, okay? It's human perspective, okay? All right, so don't be emotional. You have to be logical in the world of academia, right? Okay, now that doesn't mean you have to agree, so you don't have to say, I agree. There could be reasons why you might disagree, right? In some societies, it might not work well, so I don't know, all right? I don't presume to have the questions, I'm just applying logic here, right? Okay, so my next step here, step 4, if I'm thinking out of the box, is to come up with a thesis statement, okay? So think about a thesis statement, okay? So take a position and argue it, right? And here, just for the sake of argument, and I'm sure some of you will disagree with it, but let's say it is a good idea, okay? So the decriminalization of small quantities of narcotics can not only help manage addiction issues through the medical system, but it can also lead to a decrease of criminal activity in the long term. Okay, so I believe, let's make it first person, right? Okay, so that is the thesis statement that I'm going here with. So I'm going to say that, sure, okay, let's see. Let's try that side. I don't know if there is a right answer here, and society will have to wait and see. We've tried it with alcohol, right? I'm not sure if anybody's familiar, but the United States tried to make alcohol illegal in the 1930s during the Prohibition era, right? And in many Middle Eastern countries, alcohol is considered a drug and is considered illegal also, right? So there's a lot of different perspectives here around the world, okay? Alexi says, I consider those who do really want to get narcotics, they will get it no matter if it's legal or illegal. Right, Alexi? So perhaps it's easier to manage if it's legal. At least society can bring taxes in from the sales of those drugs, right? Okay. All right. So this is my thesis, these are my 2 points. So my body paragraph 1 will not only help manage addiction issues through the medical system. That would be my body paragraph 1. And body paragraph 2, it can also help lead to decrease of criminal activity in the long term, right? Because if you take away the business from illegal drug sales, then you might decrease criminal activity. And this is in fact why some of these countries have been doing this, because then smuggling, all kinds of violence and aggression, avoiding taxes, so tax evasion. There's a lot of crimes that are connected to illegal drug use, right? So if the end user is provided drugs through the government system, they can remove the criminal element from that system, right? Okay. So the criminal activity that might be there. So anyway, there's some ideas there for you to consider. Okay. Just imagine how many underground coffee shops would emerge if suddenly your society said, oh, coffee's illegal. I bet you'd find a few secret espresso machines in the underground world very soon. All right, so let's write the introduction, okay? The introduction has your hook, has your background. And by the way, students, when you're doing your writing at home in your practice, try to think about topics like this. They're provocative, they're interesting, they're exciting. When you're interested and excited about what you're doing, you learn better for language, okay? When it's not boring, right? Carolina says there is a cup of illegal coffee right there. All right. Yes, that's right, Alexi. Moonshine came from the Prohibition era. Yes. Mm-hmm. And of course, when you have these illegal drug factories, they're not exactly clean and healthy establishments, right? The reason, by the way, that this started to happen in Canada very quickly recently is because the illegal drugs were actually killing people. They were toxic. So a lot of people were actually dying from bad drugs, right? Okay, but you never know. I mean, look at China. There's a great case of where making a drug illegal helped clean up society. So China had a huge opium problem in the 1800s, going into the 1900s. And the only way they were able to control it is by making it punishable by death, right? Which didn't actually solve the issue, but it created a huge criminal world. So anyway, that's another topic, but another interesting case to think about. So when you're answering questions in task 2, definitely think about real world situations. Prohibition in the US, the opium era of China. So those are some interesting cases of legal use of certain drugs like alcohol and, in that case, opium, right? Okay. Think about all the people who are addicted to legal pharmaceutical drugs like painkillers or morphine, right? All right. Chayani says the opium noodle. I'm not sure what that is. The opium noodle. Chayani, I'll have to explain that. Okay. Yes, that's right, Amra. The opium wars between Britain and China. Britain was the supplier of opium to China, and they didn't much like China making opium illegal, right? Afghanistan is one of the biggest suppliers of opium for medical use, for morphine in the world. Interesting why Afghanistan was such a point of interest in the last 50 years, right? Okay, anyway, let's not politicize too much, so don't get too lost in your ideas. Focus on your thesis. So hook, background, and thesis. That's your introductory paragraph, okay? The hook should be an interesting fact, simple sentence, no mistake, catches the reader's attention, okay? I'm going to go with my hook. You go with your hook. All you need to do is just write an H. Okay, all I need from you is just this, and then I know it's your hook. Okay, so just write that. Okay, so hook. There. That's mine. I'm going to try to keep it real simple. 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Good. I kept it under 12. If you can keep your hook under 12 words, fantastic. Okay? So drug addiction has been a concern in many societies for centuries. It's true. Okay? We can say that now, that for the past few hundred years, societies have dealt with addiction problems of people, whether it's alcohol, opium, otherwise. Okay. Carolina writes, around the world there are some countries that have depenalized illegal drug consumption in order to protect the youth from early addictions. Too complicated, Carolina. Too many ideas there. Simplify. Okay. Anahita, that's your thesis, I'm guessing. According to my perspectives, since drug dependencies are owing to mental health, decriminalization of small narcotic usage should be permitted as it allows people to stay in touch with counselors. Anahita, it's like you're writing your body paragraph, so too much information there. You've got good ideas, just separate them. Separate them into your thesis, separate them into your body paragraph. Okay, Anahita? Domenico, I think that's your hook, right, Domenico? So make sure to write that H if it's your hook. Domenico says the problem of drug addiction affects the well-being of societies. Domenico, simplify it. You can simplify that. So the problem of drug addiction is affecting the well-being of societies. Okay, keep writing, students. When you write your background, we need to consider the definitions and the importance, okay? So definitions and importance. This comes from your planning, the what, why, and the how, okay? Angel. The hook is an interesting fact or statement about the topic that catches the reader's attention. So here we're talking about drug addiction or decriminalization. Okay? And here mine is a little bit off because I'm not actually saying decriminalization. It's acceptable, but I might write something better, right? Okay, so maybe something like that. Decriminalizing small amounts of drugs is becoming a global trend. Yeah, so in some of your countries you don't have it yet, but don't be surprised if in the next 5-10 years, especially if countries like Canada, Germany, prove that it works. And now in this case, it was Portugal and Holland, the Netherlands, that proved that yes, it seems that there is a way to make this effective in society, okay, or have good results in society. And that's why Canada is now trying it, and Germany is like, it looks like that works. It just takes about 10-15 years, but it works, okay? Remember, students, 10, 15, 20, 30 years for a society, one generation, it's not a lot of time. If we can create positive change within a generation, then it's not a lot of time. Yes, it might be a problem for us in the short term, 1, 2, 3 years, watching all of these drug addicts stumble around in the streets, but you have to look at the big picture, right? And so this is more with the topic, decriminalizing small amounts of drugs is becoming a global trend, right? Alexi says, decriminalization of narcotics has been the reason of controversies for decades. Alexi, you can say that, but even simpler. Decriminalization of narcotics has been controversial for decades. Has been controversial for decades. Take out the reasons of, and it's a very good hook. Amra, drug addiction has become a major concern in many societies around the world. Yeah, it works. That does work. We haven't said decriminalization, but good. Anahita says, even the modest narcotic coffee, it's not that modest, but yes, even the modest narcotic coffee is a prevalent used drink around the world. I don't know, Anahita, if I would use that as my hook. I might use that as my take-home message in my conclusion, right? That could be, if when you realize that in the conclusion, that could be, or in the body paragraph, that could be an interesting example where you can say most societies already have decriminalized small quantities of personal use drugs like coffee and alcohol. You can't have an illegal coffee brewing place in your basement, or alcohol brewery or tobacco shop in your basement. That's illegal, right? But you can have small quantities in your cupboard of alcohol, coffee, tobacco, right? So, background, definition, importance. All I need from you students is just a B colon when you're writing your background. Okay, nothing more. All right. So, certain societies like Portugal and the Netherlands have already allowed the possession of grams of drugs like cocaine and what else? Cocaine and heroin for personal use. I'm not sure if they've allowed heroin, but I'm just guessing here. Okay. So certain societies like Portugal, the Netherlands, and the Netherlands have already allowed the possession of grams of drugs like cocaine and heroin for personal use, in hopes that this leads to better assistance for addicts and eventual decrease in crime. Okay, so this is the background, right? So this is a definition of what it means to decriminalize small amounts of illegal drugs and the importance, and it's all in one, okay? Here, I'm using the expression in hopes that, okay? This is a cause and effect type of connection here, right? So in hopes that, all right? All right. And then here, my thesis, okay? And all we need here is just a T. Now, in the actual IELTS, you do not need to write, obviously, thesis and T, but the examiner will make sense of it, right? So here, let's keep that. And then I can connect here. Indeed, I believe that decriminalization of small quantities of narcotics not only help manage addiction issues through the medical system, but it can also lead to decreased criminal activity in the long term. Okay? All right. So now I want to review my introductory paragraph, make sure it makes sense, make sure that we're on the right track, okay? And I can even say rather than creating more social problems, I believe. So I can address that second or other side of the question, okay? All right. So I review it. Decriminalizing small amounts of drugs is becoming a global trend. Certain societies like Portugal and the Netherlands have already allowed the possession of grams of drugs like cocaine and heroin for personal use and hope that this leads to better assistance for addicts and eventually improves society. Now, because I don't want to repeat myself. Indeed, rather than creating more social problems, I believe that decriminalization of small quantities of narcotics can both, I'm going to go with both and here instead of not only, both, because it's positive, both help manage addiction issues through the medical system, and it can also lead to decrease of criminal activity. Okay, simplify it a little bit. There. Now it's concise, it's clear, it's simple, and we are on the right track to a Band 9 essay. All right, let's see what's going on. Okay. Chayani, Hook. Consuming narcotics has been becoming a big trouble in many societies. I don't think that's correct. So Chayani, you've got some really complicated grammar there unnecessarily. You're trying to use the present perfect progressive. It's kind of rare to do that in writing because it's unnecessary a lot of the times, and it's inaccurate in this case as well. It hasn't been becoming, it is, right? So consuming narcotics is trouble in many societies, is a big problem in many societies, okay? So simpler, Chani, not in the hook, okay? So don't overcomplicate the hook, Chani. Carolina, background. Canada and Uruguay allow the purchase of cannabis and marijuana. It's the same, Carolina. Don't repeat yourself. So Canada and Uruguay allow the purchase of cannabis to keep the drug out of the hands of youth and take away profits from criminals and to protect public health. Too much information, Carolina. Your background should be a bit simpler. What you're writing there, especially in the second half, because what we want to do here. So yes, I'm kind of doing the same, Carolina. I mentioned Portugal and Netherlands, but I'm more direct to the question. Possession of grams of drugs. This is the key part here, okay? Because this is the definition from here. Okay, so a couple of grams of illegal drugs. So what does it mean to decriminalize small quantities? So this is the definition here, already allowed. So that's what I'm looking for in the background. I hope that makes sense, okay? All right, so a little bit more, so not so specific, not like you're writing the body paragraph, okay? Angel says decriminalization of illicit drugs has been a hot topic. We don't say booming topic. We say hot topic over the last few decades. Okay? Then it's okay. Not booming. Booming is a bit weird there, Angel. So not booming, okay, but hot topic. Domenico. The discussion about whether the decriminalization of consumption of small amounts of narcotics to provide treatment for people addicted to drugs or whether it can exacerbate the problem is causing divide among communities worldwide. Yeah, okay, Domenico, that's not bad for the background. It's the importance of the question in part, for sure. Just simplify. I think you can say the same idea, but with 30-40% less words, okay? So students, you never want to overcomplicate communication unnecessarily, because ultimately your goal is for your audience to understand what you need to say or what you desire to say as simply as possible, okay? Complex compound sentences aren't complex or compound so that they can be complex or compound, okay? Complex compound sentences are that way to, in fact, give more information in a shorter way, okay? You never want to stretch sentences unnecessarily, okay? Ideally, you want to be concise, and complex compound sentences are meant to enable you to be more concise, not be more wordy. Does that make sense? Okay. Wordiness is considered poor writing. So too many words is considered poor writing. So try to be concise. Okay. It's not poetry. All right. It's not poetry. Alexi, nevertheless, some states had already adjusted their law and made usage of recreational drugs not punishable by jail, as they believe it decreases criminal activity. Okay. Or simply, Alexi, you could say decreases crime, right? So think about word forms, students. To be concise, all you have to do sometimes is word form. Criminal activity, criminal rates, crime, right? Crime. Okay. Fuang, although prohibited drugs are banned in some nations, I strongly support that decriminalization should be legal. Okay, too many words. Fuang. First of all, Fuang, never have those double negatives. Although together with however cancel each other. It's two negatives, right? -1 times -1, poof, +1, right? So take that out, Fuang. Be careful. That's a big mistake. Okay. Although prohibited drugs are banned in some countries, I strongly support decriminalization for managing addictions and decreasing crime. Got it, Fuang? One more time, Fuang. Although prohibited drugs are banned in some nations, although some nations prohibit certain drugs, I strongly support decriminalization for managing addictions and criminal activity. Okay? Much simpler, much more accurate. Okay? Alexi, in fact, I ascertained that the legalization not only brings societies decreased crime, but also aids persons with drug dependencies. Good. Alexi, stay away from the will, okay? Make your argument valid in the present tense, okay? So stay away from will, students. This is a strategy and standard of academic and professional writing, as we avoid the future participle will because we want the context to be valid now. The reason for this is a lot of your audience doesn't care if it's not now. If it's the future, they're like, oh, it's the future. Who cares? I'm right here, right now. I don't care about the future. Whatever, right? People are short-sighted, right? So they're like, will. I will read this essay when that will happen. Don't blame me. We're all human. But that's the way we are. So the rule of thumb in academic professional writing is you bring it always to the present tense. Okay? So Alexi, in fact, I ascertained that legalization not only brings society decreased crime, but also increased help for people with drug dependencies. Okay? All right? Okay, people. Let me hop to the first body paragraph. I'm going to have to kind of go through this nice and smoothly. Okay? So, help manage addiction issues through the medical system. While it is true that allowing small amounts of narcotics may lead or may encourage certain people to try them or access these easier, ultimately it empowers the national medical systems to identify individuals with addictive personalities and provide the necessary infrastructure to manage this illness. Okay? So while it is true that allowing small amounts of narcotics may encourage certain people to access these easier, ultimately it empowers the national medical systems to identify individuals with addictive personalities and provide the necessary infrastructure to manage this illness. So this is my topic sentence. And notice how my topic sentence with this first part acknowledges that there can be certain social problems, right? Because the original question, this task 2, says that, hey, you know, it could lead to more problems, right? So, and they should be legal, right? Because it leads to more problems. One of the problems, so think about the problems, right? One of the problems people think is that, hey, if kids see it or if people see it, they can get it easier, right? Like alcohol, coffee, tobacco, okay? Kids see it, they try smoking. They have a store there with alcohol in it, they go and get alcohol. Right, but at the end of the day, are we all alcoholics? Are we all smokers until we die from lung cancer? No, there are those people, but not everybody, right? Does that happen to everyone just because it's there? I certainly hope not, right? It's up to society to manage that. But anyway, I'm keeping these concepts in mind as I'm working through this, right? So while it is true that allowing small amounts of narcotics may encourage certain people to access these easier, ultimately, it empowers. Empowers means to give power. The national medical system to identify individuals with addictive personalities and provide the necessary infrastructure to manage this illness. Indeed, science has proven that addiction is a medical condition that is related to genetics. And I believe that such people should not be considered as criminals. Instead, they should receive pharmaceutical quality drugs and treatments to help cope and recover from addiction. In fact, many societies have already created such services for alcohol and tobacco that can be considered the same. And if I want to think about the services, I can think about AA support groups and nicotine patches, right? And many of you probably know about those. So in societies where alcohol is allowed, which is a big part of the world, there are support groups for people who are addicted to alcohol. For societies where people smoke cigarettes and they try to quit, they can go to the pharmacy and get themselves a nicotine patch to help them quit, right? So that would be my example here, okay? So topic sentence, then my explanation, and then my example. Okay, and now for a connecting sentence, I can say this is one of two reasons I am in favor of decriminalization. Okay, so this is one of two reasons I'm in favor of decriminalization. Keep your connecting sentences in IELTS simple. Okay? The second reason is that it helps society manage criminal activity and decreases the pressure on the judicial system. Okay? So here's my second topic sentence. And I'm writing it just the same as you. I have not pre-written this essay, or I have not even really thought about it too much before writing this essay. So here's my second sentence, and this is your hint for your second body paragraph, okay? All right. So helps manage criminal activity. I think you have some ideas of why that might be, and decreases pressure on the judicial system. Here's a fun fact for everybody. Does anybody know how much one criminal costs the Canadian taxpayer per year in Canada? Just a fun fact question for you to think about this. How much is the cost of one jailed or inmate, a person in jail, for the Canadian taxpayer? Now, I must say we have some pretty decent jails, so they're not as horrible, the conditions, as in some countries. But believe me, your jail systems are not cheap. Okay? Okay, Alexi says $100 for the Canadian taxpayer per year. Sorry, I should say how much is the cost of one inmate, a person in jail, for the Canadian taxpayer per year? Okay, let's make this a proper question. Okay. Carolina, very close. The last statistic I heard was $80,000. But that was a few years ago, so I bet you're actually closer, Carolina. Okay? So if you think about that, right? Somebody is, doing drugs on the street, and now suddenly they're in jail, and we're paying $80,000 to keep them in jail. Is that the best solution? I don't know. I'd sure like to explore some other solutions if possible, right? Okay, so that's just some food for thought, everybody, but you get the idea. So here is the introduction. Here is the body paragraph 1. Members, I'm sure you can guess what's coming up. Finish this essay on your own. So I know some of you have exams coming up over the next couple of days, so it's great practice for you. Finish the essay on your own, body paragraph 2 and the conclusion. Most of you know what's going on and what you need to do. So the second body paragraph needs an explanation, needs an example, and then you need the conclusion where you restate your points and give a take-home message for your readers. Strengthen your argument. Okay? If you have questions, a great place to get your answers is in the full course. So go to aehelp.com, click the big red button, join the premium package, go to your My Student account, open up your full course, go to the writing section, go to task 2, and look at the structure of task 2. Figure out what you need to write, how you need to write it, use the course, look at the examples, okay? Students, I will be back with reading in 30 minutes. That will be a subscribers chat class, so make sure to subscribe. Great work in today's class. By the way, members, moderators, I do see that your writing is improving. It's becoming nicer and nicer, more and more effective with better and better thoughts and vocabulary. That's the way to do it. So again, everybody, aehelp.com for academic IELTS, gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. That's where you find lots of explanations for proper writing strategies for school and work and, of course, the IELTS exam. I'm Adrian. I'm signing out from Victoria for now. I look forward to your finished essays. Send them to my email, okay, adrian@aehelp.com. And I'll be back in 30 minutes. Stretch your legs. Grab a cup of water, not coffee. Bye for now.